Once again, we're on the road to Gillette and one step closer to a state championship Saturday. Once again, I'm Scott Barboza, joined by Brendan Hall, as always, with your weekly football preview. Brendan, again, another crazy week of semifinals. A little bit more, we talked about the previous week, how the seedings pretty much prevailed through the first round, but last week a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw up and down quite a number of lower seeds getting the better half, winning on the road, which I think is incredibly tough to do in these playoff environments.
Absolutely.
We saw one of the best home environments, Barnstable, play a factor against Natick last week. 27-13 win to punch their ticket to the final. I expect even more fireworks this weekend, and again, a home game. I like these home games all throughout the district. I really like that. It puts a value on getting a high seed and the importance of
regular season games
absolutely,
as well. League games, of course, are also important in that realm as well. But obviously, we're here at the state, across the state here, we're at the sectional final stage across most of those divisions. One more game past this with an East-West matchup coming to Gillette Stadium after that. D1, obviously. We'll see those guys in a couple weeks after this. But, Brendan, let's get into some of the top performers from this past weekend. We spent some time at Plymouth North earlier this week with Christian Carr, who has already, is pretty much knocking on the doors of history there as the single-season rusher already. But, not a whole lot of trickery with this Plymouth North offense. We know pretty much what they're running, but they run it very well.
Yeah, we talk a lot throughout the season, and rightfully so, about Plymouth South and their running back, Dylan Oxen, and that pistol offense, the counter, they're able to run off of that. And it's no secret what they've got. And then you go across town, Plymouth North, same deal. They love to run those 22 personnel, love running the toss sweep, getting some big guys in front of Christian Carr, who's built pretty low to the ground, kind of a compact player, but has some great top-end speed. I'll show you a number of clips here from last week against Dighton Rehoboth. We'll show evidence of that. This first play we're going to see here, third play of the game. Carr's going to bust a 56-yard touchdown run. 3 key blocks are going to pin this open. First, number 2, Trevor Devlin, the wingback, motioning through the hole. He cuts out the first guy. Then number 35, the fullback, Pat Hicks, is going to cut block somebody 10 yards downfield. And then watch here, meanwhile, wide receiver 16, Brandon Green, he's just going to turn his defensive back out and pin him against the sideline. This next play here is an 18-yard touchdown run. Watch as he initially looks like he's going to be brought down behind the line of scrimmage. He stops behind the fullback. Then he steps back, gets that extra push. Then he just accelerates right through the middle, but he pulls loose of a tackle at the end for the easy touchdown. This next play is a 20-yard gain for Carr. Watch again. We got motion across formation from Devlin, but watch here as Hicks just lowers the boom on his defensive tackle. That probably outweighs him by a significant margin. And then Pat Dander, the tight end, at the same time, his man is going to run a slant across his face, and he's just guiding him right out of the play. This next play right here, 18-yard gain. Hicks is so important to this running game. Look again. Cut block, takes out 2 defenders, and then it's right here. Brandon Green turns his defender out again and pins him right in the dirt. So as you see, Scott, it's a number of guys, not just Carr. He gets all the glory, obviously, but he's got 3 or 4 guys in front of him that really make a lot of things happen. And then the offensive line, obviously, they're going to control a lot. I think it's going to be a really good battle between the trenches, South with Sean Duncombe, the Bryant commit, one of the top linemen in the state. I'm really excited to see how this goes. I think it's going to be a real back-and-forth battle, just like the first time they met.
Going to be a huge one, and of course, there's one more to go on Thanksgiving Day, no matter what. Let's take a look at another one of the premier performers here in this playoff so far. We talk about Doherty all season. Luke Brennan, perhaps an underrated quarterback. Baseball commit there, obviously. Isaac Yidam, already signed, sealed, and delivered to Boston College, of course, with NLIs going on this week. But Alfred Adarkra, a long, rangy receiver, presents all kinds of matchup problems.
Yeah, this is a guy we had been talking about back in the summer when we went and stopped by Doherty. A lot of people predicting a big breakout season for him. He's 6'4". He's long. He's got a 6'7" wingspan. You've seen his hands. His hands are huge.
Randy Moss-like.
He's got Rob Gronkowski hands. I mean, it's just he's just a fly trap. He just catches everything in a huge radius. Seems like from his knees up to above his head, doesn't it? You can't say enough about this guy. 4 catches, 122 yards, but all for touchdowns. You're not going to see a stat line like that anywhere else from a wide receiver so far in these playoffs. When we had talked about in the past about maybe the way they could use him, they had hinted at during passing leagues that experimented with Yidam and Adarkra on the same side of the formations, maybe some stack a little bit, kind of making the defense kind of pick their poison. Well, it turns out they're picking their poison by putting them on opposite ends of the field and playing off where the safeties go. I'll show you a couple touchdowns here, show them talking about. All right, this first player right here, 12-yard touchdown. Two backs, twins to the left. But look at a Darkwa. He's on an island by himself. Look where the safety is shaded to guide him aside. Colin's going to bring two outside backers from the front side for a 5-man rush. Brennan's just going to throw it a jump ball. And this one's a beaut. He just turns, extends, and high points it. This next one here is going to be a 74-yard touchdown run. Again, on an island. Can't see it on the screen, but it looks like a free safety shaded to the island side again. Darkwa's going to run a nice 6 route here. Anybody who watches Texas Tech know that one? Brushes his man aside, and he's off to the races. This one here, an 11-yard touchdown. He's going to play tight end this time, but he comes uncovered off the line of scrimmage. It's going to be a 10-yard hard out route, and he dives for the catch to his left. Now, Shepherd Hill, as we know, runs a vastly different offensive scheme. They get that double wing, the tight splits. They get big convoys up the middle. They're going to force 8 or 9 guys in the box. But Doherty, you've seen him. I've seen him. They're going to try to take this game out of the box. And if a Darkwa can take the top off the defense, we know what Yiadom can do. He gets gone multiple ways there. Wildcat quarterback, taking handoffs, running speed sweeps, running some underneath routes. Jakari Carpenter had a big week last week. They got enough weapons. I think they can do some damage on other parts of the field. If Darkwa gets the attention that he pretty much has merited to this point.
Yeah. We'll get into that matchup with Shepherd Hill in just a little bit when we go through our picks for this week in the sectional finals. But before we do that, let's take one last look back at last week and perhaps the game of the week. The huge billing coming in, obviously, Natick. Troy Flutie going for history in the touchdowns record there. But this Barnstable defense, as they have been wont to do in recent years here, coming up with perhaps one of their finer performances, I think, in recent memory.
Yeah, this is a bit understated how much coaching went into this one. They installed a cover 2 defense, something they hadn't run all year in a matter of 3 days. They stayed late after practices, making sure they had everything right. And it was a well-run defense. They were actually bringing corners, bringing them off the line of scrimmage for a cover 4 look at times. They put a linebacker, Nate Yingling, who had not played football the year before. They put him on Hilger. And
been a good asset for them this year.
Absolutely. I mean, Hilger had his touchdown catch, but Yingling more than held his own as a linebacker, just kind of marking him over the field. Really one of the more impressive defensive performances I've seen all year. It's not often you get Troy Flutie under 150 yards passing, but that's what happened. Mike Redding of Mansfield, that's going to be their opponent this week in the D2 South Final. We know, I mean,
good matchup
I know
there.
He's one of the best game schemers in all the state. I think he's got a great foil here. It's going to be interesting to see how Barnstable draws it up because Brendan Hill is a target that they haven't had the likes of seeing all year. Quite a unique skill set. But the way they attacked Flutie, Barnstable, was pretty unique. They were bringing some unique pressure, some odd fronts, but bringing 4 or 5 guys from different angles. It was tough to pick up. I'll show you a couple here on film from last week. They had Troy Flutie for 4 sacks. Well, how often does that happen?
Can't remember.
Well, let's go to the film here. This first sack here, watch Hayden Murphy is lined up in the slot like he's going to defend a receiver. Henry O'Shaughnessy comes through, gets initially cut blocked, but Murphy releases his receiver, comes in on a delay blitz, forces Flutie to move a little bit, and O'Shaughnessy gets back on his feet for the sack. This next one right here, look at Murphy, again, lined up in the slot. He's just going to go right at Flutie. Just comes in untouched. Running back doesn't even pick him up. He's got his back turned to the blitzer, and Murphy's getting a free shot here, basically. This next one here, pay attention to number 15, Clyde Perry. Looks like he's going to drop into the flat zone, strafing a little bit, but then he comes back and shoots up the B gap and makes Flutie get nervous a little bit here. Then this last one here, it's an odd front, 4-man pressure, just going to be straight up. O'Shaughnessy rips across the tackler's face. Flutie springs loose from this, but number 50, Chris Kennedy, does not resist, and he takes him down. We've talked all year about what a dynamic running game they've got here, Barnstable. That zone read with the receivers backpedaling off looking for a screen. They'll tell you that the screen option is there. It's not a bluff. They just haven't hit it much to this point. And we saw them hit that at least a half dozen times against Natick. So I'm curious how that factors in. But this defense, I think it's underrated as far as athleticism. These guys are a little bit more athletic than they give on.
And, of course, that D2 South Gauntlet marches on with the final game here with Barnstable and Mansfield, which we will dissect from all fronts here in just a couple moments. But let's, again, taking a look at those sectional finals across the state. Let's start it out in Western Mass. We saw this matchup at the end of their regular season out in Western Mass with Westfield Great story there, obviously, running roughshod all over their opposition out there until they ran into Springfield Central. Now we get a redux here. Is this one going to be a little bit closer, perhaps, than the last time?
That's going to be on Westfield. They had a lot of mistakes they got to clean up from that first meeting 2 weeks ago. Look, Springfield Central, and this has been the talk this week out there, is Central's got the superstars, but Westfield apparently plays more like a team. I don't know. These Central kids are pretty determined. I haven't seen a skill grouping like them across the state. Really, I think they're going to come out determined a second time. They don't want to let off the gas pedal. Last time was a 52-13 win. I don't expect it to be that out of hand, but I do expect Central to put up points again. I'm going to say Central 30-17.
Again, you get an experienced Central nucleus here that's been together, played in big games like this in the last couple of years here. I think that's an advantage for them as well. Again, as you mentioned, I think it'll be a little bit closer, so I'll call it by a score of 32-21 for the Golden Eagles. Let's take a look at Central and start in Division 4 with, again, as we mentioned, Doherty off the top and Shepherd Hill.
Yeah, as I mentioned off the top, I think Doherty is going to push this game outside the tackle boxes. You saw what happened with Shepherd Hill against Leominster last month. Leominster got a lot of points off them. It was otherwise a good effort from Shepherd Hill, except for the fact that they gave up a whole ton of points. I think they could have some of the same problems here. Obviously, Leominster has a little bit more talent than Doherty, I think, at this point. But, boy, Doherty's going to put on a number of points. I mean, I think Shepherd Hill is going to keep it close, but I think Doherty ends up getting some points in the end, 34-22.
I wrote this after the Leominster game when Doherty really went toe-to-toe with the Blue Devils for one half and then kind of, fell by the wayside in the second half. But I thought that was a huge critical learning experience for them. And some of the things that I saw in that game I think will apply to this one. In particular, the interior of that Doherty defensive line and the linebackers inside, I think a little bit underrated there. I think they come to play here in a big way. Call it a little bit closer here, one possession game. We'll call it 27-20 for the Highlanders. Now let's take a look at Division 2 in Central. Rematch of our very first game of the week. Great atmosphere, obviously. Expecting pretty much the same thing here with St. John's and Shrewsbury and Leominster.
Yeah, that was the best atmosphere I've seen all year.
Yeah,
nothing could really top that. It's like going from The Godfather to a B movie, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it was
Godfather 1 and Godfather 3, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Took the words right out of my mouth. No, it really was a great environment. I expect an even bigger one, if that's possible. An even bigger one this week. Playoff implications are on the line. It just gets even bigger at Doyle Field, and that was a big game already. The one thing people forget, for as much as Leominster dominated for stretches, St. John's really gassed them in the second half with screen passes. The middle screens to Mike McGillicuddy, the primary benefactor there. I mean, Smiley had like 210 yards passing. I think at least 150 were on screens. They really did a good job carving them up. I think if they commit to that early and they stick with it and they get some big gains out of it, I think this will be a close one. And I think that's what's going to happen here. But Leominster is going to pull it out at the end because Plazzi's just got that. He just sees a call the right place, but more importantly, O'Connor has that late game moxie.
Yeah,
you've seen it. But last year, this year,
St. John Shrewsbury has seen it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So give me Leominster here, 28-26.
Yeah, I think taking a look at that first game, as you mentioned, took a little while for Drew Smiley to kind of get into the rhythm of that game. In the second half, obviously much better than the first. I'd expect them to come ready to play out of the gates here, but still, we've been waiting for this Central Leominster matchup. I think it's been kind of something that we've been looking for all year. I think we actually get to see it a week from now. So I'm going to call it for the Blue Devils by the score of 32-28. We'll call it close because it's a rivalry game, and why not? Now let's take a look at some of the North Sectional finals here. DCL clash. This one has some intrigue here. Lincoln Sudbury and Waltham.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to go not on personnel here, just on experience. Lincoln Sudbury, how many times have they been in the playoffs these last couple of years? You think back to the Everett matchup 2 years ago. You think back to the Barnstable game last year. They beat Barnstable the year before. I really like their playoff experience in this one. They're more experienced. Waltham, boy, that was a nice win over Reading. They had to hold on at the end. No, Dana Perola had a nice night, but they had to hold on at the end. Lincoln Sudbury, I just like the experience in this one. Give me 18-10.
I wanted to go with, as you mentioned, the Warriors. I think, it was a little bit of a surprise this year. I thought maybe, next year they would kind of get back to where being Lincoln Sudbury per se. But all the credit to Coach Lopez there. They had a
One of the best.
really a lot of exceptional football, lacrosse athletes. Obviously, the turnover there, we know about that. I think good credit to the program there. But I'm going to go with the Hawks here. As you mentioned, Perello among the state passing leaders in the playoffs. It's going to be a grinder, though. I'm going to go with the Hawks 14-13. Pull it out there. Let's take a look at another inter-league matchup in Division III Northwest with Woburn and Melrose.
Two Middlesex League rivals here.
Yeah.
You can't get better than this, folks. League rivals playing for a district title. How about that, huh? Pretty cool. Malik Garrett, one of the more underrated quarterbacks, I think, this postseason.
Absolutely.
And they run that screen option game. They have with the screen package and the zone read, and Garrett can hit the screen, but boy, he can take off too, huh? Yeah. He's quite a dynamic rusher. He's got 364 rushing yards in 2 games. Pretty impressive. I like Melrose putting points up here, 33-21.
Yeah, you talk about Garrett with that screen game. It's a very efficient passing game. You look at his numbers, been completing well in excess of 75% of his passes in the playoffs here. I think that's a big difference because sometimes in high school you get into spread formations. You can chuck the ball around. And if you don't,
they're brittle.
Yeah, exactly. It can kind of fall by the wayside pretty quickly. But I like what they got going here. It's been a great season and it keeps going for Melrose. I'm going to go 20-14. Let's take a look down south in Division 4. Holliston comes back, gets the better of Westwood in their second time around. Of course, another impending Thanksgiving date going off there. But perhaps their stiffest challenge to date going to Dennis Yarmouth.
Yeah. I wonder how that third Thanksgiving match is going to
It's going to be a war, really. Really.
Rubber match, really.
Yes.
That'll be cool. That'd be really cool. DY really had to fight and claw to get back against Apponequet, but they got that moxie in the end. Similar to their counterparts, Barnstable just kind of pulling stuff out at the beginning of the year. Mike Dunn has really had a tremendous playoff experience, but so has Spencer Tyler. The two of them are quite a vicious combination. I know Holliston's got quite a number of athletes that could do a number of things. Absolutely. Zach Elkinson, obviously, the forefront of that. But DY plays at a speed that I'm not sure Holliston is accustomed to for as fast as they play. Mm-hmm. This is just a whole nother level of speed. I think there's many ACL opponents that'll tell you the same thing. I expect a shootout here, though. I expect a lot of offensive fireworks.
Absolutely.
Give me DY 38-35.
This is a really tough one to predict here. Obviously, you mentioned the athletes. I think Elkinson and Dunn, whether seeing them in person or on film, two of the more exciting kids we've seen all year long. Every time they have the ball in their hands, they make good things, whether it's in the receiving game, Elkinson, special teams for Michael Dunn. Really, they can do it either way. Going to be a tough one here, one possession game. Just going on a hunch here, I'm going to go with the Dolphins by a score of 34-31. Now, speaking of another interdivisional matchup, we go to Division III Southwest, and we get another look at the Hockomock Davenport division race, which was pretty much between Stoughton and Oliver Ames all season long. They get another crack at it. Can the Knights come back and make some headroom, perhaps?
How many of us wrote off Stoughton after Malachi went down?
Yeah, a little tough.
Yeah,
tough loss.
Stoughton's got some athletes, and I think they learned from their mistakes against OA from earlier in the year when they lost to him. And as I mentioned before, it's always tougher beating a guy second time around, isn't it? Yeah. I think Stoughton gets revenge here, 24-17.
Talked to Jim Artz earlier in the week, the coach of the week, talking to him. Obviously, a lot of respect for the Stoughton program. He didn't think it was going to be as easy as you mentioned the second time around as they may have made it seem in the first time around. Still, I'm going to go with the prevailing win here and go with the Tigers by a score of 30-14. I'll take a look at Division III Southeast with the Battle of Plymouth. Once again, we got another one of these dates still impending at Thanksgiving Day. This playoff system, by the way, is the gift that keeps on giving. I don't want to hear anything about that otherwise because we get another look at North and South. Man, this is going to be a great atmosphere down there.
Absolutely. Think about when they played in late September, 4 o'clock start, and they still have this place full of capacity.
Yeah,
it was an impressive, packed crowd for such an odd time start.
Yeah.
I just don't like those Friday afternoon starts. I think they're just horrible.
Stuck in traffic games, I like to call them.
But no, I think, 7 o'clock start for this one?
Yep.
This one will be over by 8:15. Both teams run the ball. They don't like to pass the ball. We know what's coming each time. They're going to have some big, long drives.
Yep.
I think we might have maybe 7 or 8 possessions total in this one.
Yep.
Really is going to be a knockdown, drag out. But I like Plymouth South. their kicking game in this one is going to be the difference.
Ooh, big time.
14-13 Panthers.
I think this black and blue game, and I give the slight edge in the battle in the trenches to the South side. Obviously, you mentioned Sean Duncombe at Al. I'm going to go with South here, 16-14. Let's take a look at Division II South. As we mentioned previously, Barnstable, Mansfield, you get the offensive whiz kid Mike Redding, the defensive Belichickian, abilities of Chris Whitten. What's going to give in that matchup? Really going to be a great chess match, I think.
If Barnstable wants to win this one, they're going to have to take a few more vertical shots downfield than they did against Natick.
That's true.
I thought they played mostly horizontal for most of the game. Hit a couple big ones at Estes, but they're really going to have to stretch this Mansfield team vertically because. Boy, they got some underrated weapons there on the defensive line, I think. Hill in particular, we talk about him so much on the offensive side, but defensive side, very skilled as well. I think if they can figure out a way to solve Flutie, they can figure out a way to kind of solve this receiving course of Hill, Hirschman. I'm not too worried about that, but I think they're going to need to kind of score some points against these guys. And I think they can do that. I think Hayden Murphy has proven himself that he's worthy of being a finalist for the Mr. Football Award. With the way 6 straight 100-yard rushing games. I mean, you can't say enough about the kid. And I think he has some more heroics here. Give me Barnstable 20-17.
Again, this is a coin flip game. It's a pick 'em line in Vegas if that sort of thing was applicable, which it is obviously not. But take a look at Mansfield in this offense. You talk about, what are they going to come out with? We called him MVP a little while ago, Miguel Villar-Perez. I don't know if he's maybe the MVP, but at least I think the unsung hero award winner for this Hornets group this year, no matter what. I think he can be the difference here. They, again, use him across the formation, a kid that was a slot receiver that they moved into running back somewhat out of necessity earlier in the year and really just hit the ground running per se. Again, really razor-thin, tight matchup here, but I'm just going to go with the Hornets. I had them picking to win Division II, the state championship here, so I'm going to go with the Hornets here by a score 30-27. Let's take a look at Saturday, and before we get to the MIAA action, there's also the Knapsack Bowls that are going on across New England. Perhaps the most intriguing matchup, Milton Academy who saw that result coming, perhaps the upset of the week there. They need to refocus against a very skilled, as we've seen all year, this Dexter squad can really put up some points.
Some underrated skill. You look at Luke Cuneo. Boy, he couldn't be any taller than 5'7", but he darts that ball around. He puts it in tight space. He's a fun kid to watch. He's a gunslinger. I like those gunslinger quarterbacks, right? I think this game's going to be won at the line of scrimmage, and two of the very best, Dan DeNicola and James Hendren, are going to do enough to push them over the edge. It's going to be a back-and-forth battle. Give me Dexter 24-21.
I really didn't know where to go with this. I think with Dexter's ability to put points on the board, you see them coming out of the evergreen. ISL scores tend to be a little bit lower.
Misleading? Or?
Yeah, kind of hard to judge these matchups here, but I do like that Dexter offense just a little bit more here, and I think Milton Academy coming off that loss to Nobles last week, it's going to take something for them to refocus and get up for this game. I think they'll get up for it, but it could be a tough one here with this Dexter squad. I'm going to go with them. Let's call it high scoring here. Let's go 37-28. And then let's go back to the MIAA with our Division I sectional finals. Both of these teams will obviously have a little time to rehab after this week, and then we'll see them at Gillette Stadium. But let's start in the South. Perhaps one of the more intriguing games of the weekend overall, Attleboro and Xaverian.
Yeah, I think this Attleboro team is a little bit more athletic than people give them credit for. I'm not sure if Xaverian has faced an offense this unique. They've had a lot of different opponents that have given a lot of different looks, but none quite like Attleboro. Yeah. I think Tim Walsh, the way he's playing in the second half of the season. Unreal. But Damon Bellin, Kyle Murphy on the line has really shown a lot. Brendan Massey, Luke Morrison. You got so many weapons to deal with here. We know Attleboro's going to score points. I think they're going to come down to defense. Can they control the line of scrimmage? And I think they can here. They get some intriguing size here. They get some little bit overlooked size here, Attleboro. I think they can push these guys around a little bit. Give me Attleboro 30-20.
Talk about unsung players. Tommy Burns from Attleboro. This kid does absolutely everything.
Jack of all trades.
Showed up in every single phase of the game throughout the season. Had a huge game earlier the year, a 3-interception game. Had another forced takeaway last week against Bridgewater Raynham that was huge. stepped up big in the receiving game again, as he's really one of probably their secondary target after Massey. Kid that can be a real difference maker here. Now, obviously with Zavarian, seeing that game that they played against BC High last week, I expect it to be much different. Obviously, that was kind of a 3 yards in a cloud of 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and I mean the ending was just kind of tingles on the back of your spine, inducing a great finish there. But I really don't think the Hawks have seen quite a team that has the blend of size up front and also the athleticism, as you mentioned. And I think they can win the battle in the trenches here. So I'm going to go with Attleboro, advancing to Gillette here, 28-27.
Wow.
And then the team that they will play will come out of the north with the matchup in Central Catholic and Everett.
Yeah. I think Central Catholic is a real dangerous team. This is the most dangerous threat I've seen yet, more than Lowell. More than some of the other teams that they face, Springfield Central or any of these. And it comes down to they're playing the back seven all year long. DeAndre Drummond, Mike Balsamo, Marcus Edmonds, just 4 or 5 guys every game. Really just comes out to play. They're so well coached. And I think they can win some battles at the line of scrimmage too. Joe Brown, an interior lineman, one of the better interior linemen I've watched this year.
Yep.
I think they're well coached on defense.
Yep.
But again, I just don't see them getting outcoached by, the sensei here, John DiPiasso. I think they can pull it together. If Lubin Figaro plays like he did last week, I don't see them losing again because that was impressive what he did in the second half. But give me Everett here, 16-14, and a real slobber knocker.
Talk about Figaro last week. His quote to our reporters on scene there was, "Hey, big players got to show up at the biggest time of the year." So he absolutely did that.
That's right.
Also, Michael Milano has done a pretty good job for this Central
very quietly too.
Very quietly, again, among the passing leaders here in the postseason. You don't really think of airing the ball too much when you think of Central Catholic. Done a very fine job there. But I guess this is my come home moment here with getting a little bit of guff from some of the Everett coaching staff in attendance on Saturday down at the Hawk Bowl. They didn't take me up on my offer of running wind sprints, thank God, because I probably would have keeled over because I think Coach probably would have taken it to me a little bit picking Lowell last week. But I'm going to come back here and side with
Earth.
I'm going to side with the Crimson Tide here. I think it's going to be a close game, though. Let's call it 21-17, and that's going to put a wrap on our picks. Of course, we'll have you covered throughout here. We got a couple more weeks here until we get to Thanksgiving, and then, of course, the 6 games at Gillette Stadium to determine the state championships. Brendan, I got to say, so far, this system has just been awesome. It gets better every week, really.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The drama is so much more intense now. This time last year, we were looking at league titles and trying to project who will be playing on Tuesday.
Yep.
This is just I can't say enough how much more exciting this is. You've got such a louder conversation than you did in years past. I really think if you haven't really gotten into this, you got to embrace it. It really is something to behold.
And finally, for all of our friends outside of 495, this is the great meeting table too, because we finally get to determine true state championships. The teams from Central and West that work so hard to get where they are would be playing in a Super Bowl game otherwise in somewhat obscurity. Now we're going to get to see who actually is a state championship, and that's the best thing.
I'll make a guarantee here. There will be a team from both Central Mass and Western Mass winning a state
title. There you go. Got to love that. We're going to pick it and stick it, and I think that's going to put a wrap on this week's edition. I'm Scott Barboza for Brendan Hall. We'll see you next time on ESPNBoston.com High Schools.